Hey everyone, welcome back to another Rebor review. Today we're going to travel all the way back to 2015 and take a look at their Ceratosaurus. This figure is going on 7 years old. It was actually the second Rebor figure I ever picked up. I think I might have gotten it around like 5 or 6 years ago, and it still remains one of my favorite figures from them. If my memory serves me correctly, I think I paid just under $40 for this figure from Everything Dinosaur, way back when. And it's been out of production for quite some time now, but according to Big Bad Toy Store, it looks like Rebor is doing another run of this figure, so that hopefully that means Everything Dinosaur will get this in. It says first quarter 2022, so hopefully the next month or two we'll see this thing pop back up, because I know a lot of people are still looking for this figure. I'll leave the link down below to Big Bad Toy Store. It looks like that pre-order is sold out, but if Everything Dinosaur gets it in, I'll drop that link down there too if that ever happens. So let's just go over the packaging really quick before we take a look at the figure. It comes in the standard Rebor box with the silhouette of the skeletal on the front. You can tell this is an old figure. The insert is just plain cardboard. I think all the newest stuff is black all around. And on the back of the box, we get a look at the figures available back in 2015. The Utyrannus, the King Rex, the Utah Raptor, and the Ceratosaurus. Out of these 4 figures, I only have these 2. I never picked up the Utyrannus. Never had any interest in it, and same thing with the Utah Raptor. And turn the box back around. Inside, you do get a little postcard with some information about Ceratosaurus. I think almost every figure in their museum line came with a little informational postcard. So that will do it for the packaging. Let's take a closer look at Savage. And let's start with a nice 360-degree view of Savage. Even though this figure is going on 7 years old, I still think it holds up. It's not a perfect Ceratosaurus. Most figures from Rebor don't pass the accuracy test. But I think it's a very nice looking figure. It has a nice natural paint scheme and a lifelike pose. Now, Rebor, for some reason, call this figure Ceratosaurus dentisulcatus. Most paleontologists consider that an invalid species. They think it's a more mature form of the type species Ceratosaurus nasicornis. And my favorite part about this figure is that natural looking base. I am a huge sucker for natural looking bases that come with dinosaur figures, and the base that comes with the Ceratosaurus is still one of the best in my eyes. It's definitely one of my favorite bases out of all the figures that come with them. Just has such a natural look to it. Just love that water effect with the submerged log. And I love using the bases in my dinosaur photography. It's kind of a shame that Rebor's kind of gotten away from bases the last few years. I love using them in photography. Shameless plug. If you check out my Instagram, you'll see this base pop up a lot in my photos. So yeah, just a huge sucker for that base. And 7 years later, it still remains one of my favorites in my collection. And now let's just do a couple quick measurements. This figure is 11 inches long from the tip of the snout to the tip of the tail, and about 3.5 inches tall from the top of the neck. So the dentisulcatus specimen of Ceratosaurus is estimated around 23 feet long. So with those measurements, that puts this figure somewhere in that 125 scale range. And now let's take a look at that gorgeous base that comes with this figure. Like I said, I absolutely love this base. It's one of my favorite bases of all time. Just look at all the nice details on here. The whole base is covered in mud and moss, and there's some little bit of lichen on the logs right here. The wood is so realistic looking, even got some rocks mixed in. You can see the footprints for where the Ceratosaurus sits on the base, and just look at that beautiful, beautiful water effect. It just gives this base so much life. You have some rocks underneath the water. Just absolutely top-notch base from them. And I wish they continue making bases, because all their bases are absolutely brilliant looking. And it's just love this thing. Just love the broken log in the water. And then turn it over on the bottom, you can see it has the Ceratosaurus Savage logo on the bottom of the base. You can tell I've had this thing displayed for a while. Has a few scratches on it, but yeah, they really did a bang-up job on here. Just love the broken tree. Just look how lifelike that looks. Just the bark, just the way it's all painted. For a $40 figure, this is a top-notch quality base that you get with it. And, bases today are just not living up to how nice this looks. Now moving on to the Ceratosaurus, that is a pretty good Ceratosaurus head sculpt on here. A little bit of shrink wrap. You can see the fenestra and the orbit are clearly shown on here, but it very lifelike. It kind of almost reminds me like of a Papo figure with like just the amount of life on here, and you can tell that this was a sculpted figure. Rebor, for the last few years have been, sculpting their figures digitally on a computer, but you could tell this one was hand done. There's just a lot of variation on all the scale details. Most of the scales on the newer figures kind of all look the same to me, but they did a pretty good job on here. It is over textured. That's pretty much a Rebor hallmark now. They have an over textured figure, but you know what, it doesn't bother me so much. You can see the nose horn is nicely sculpted. You have a little bit brown paint on the nose horn and the eyebrow horns, and then the eye is painted gold with a black pupil. The teeth are nicely painted. You can tell it's an old figure because the teeth are actually painted. On their newer stuff, they use that like translucent plastic that gives the teeth that enamel look. The jaw is articulated. Let's get my camera to focus in on it. It does not like this figure for some reason. Jaw articulation, that's about the furthest you're going to get the mouth open, but you can see some real nice detail on the tongue. It has a nice wash over it to give it a nice lifelike look. Some gloss coat along the gums, and let's take a look at the figure from the front and then turn around to the other side. Now mine does have a small I wouldn't even call it a defect. Looks like they used a little bit too much paint on that tooth right there, and the teeth are joined together. All these years I had it, I was thinking about just getting an X-Acto knife and just getting that extra paint out of there to separate the teeth, but I never did, and I probably never will. And then on the back over here, you can see the ear canal is sculpted, and then Ceratosaurus had osteoderms running along the top of its body, but Rebor decided to give it like this really keeled looking scale look. It's not accurate, but it really makes it stand out from the other Ceratosaur figures. It's a really unique look to it, and I like it. And then going down to the hands, you can see the 4-digit hands that Ceratosaurus is known for. The hand claws are picked out in glossy brown paint because some large belly scales underneath. The whole underside is done in white. And then go down to the main body, you have some mixtures of black and brown. Like I said, it's a very natural looking color scheme on here, and I like how all the large osteoderms have some nice dry brushing of brown on to make them stand out. You got some nice muscle detail in the thigh area. Going down to the feet, yeah, the feet are oversized. That is to help with stability, and I know when this figure first came out, there was a lot of issues with warping with this figure. It wasn't standing. Like I said, I've had this figure 5 or 6 years. It has not warped at all on me. It actually is more stable off the base than on the base. That's just the way the base is sculpted because of those footprints. You have to balance it just right, and if you just graze the table, it probably will fall over. But if you don't have it on the base, it's definitely much more stable. And then looking at the feet, you can see all those nice scales on there are decked out in black paint. Toe claws are done in brown. Nice glossy look on the toe claws. And then going to the side, you can see some nice folds and wrinkles. A lot of scale variation all over this figure. I think the scales look better on here than some of their newer stuff. Like I said, they sculpt the newer stuff on a computer now. And then going down to the tail, you have a nice curve on the tail with all those scales going down right to the tip. So yeah, still like this figure. It's not a perfect Ceratosaurus, but it has a lot of life and character, and I really, really do like it. And you just need to line the feet up on the base, and like I said, you have to get it just right, or it will fall over. Like there's like just a little bit of clearance right here where that toe is, and it just kind of gives it a little bit of wobble factor. But man, that thing does look sexy on that base. All right, moving on with comparisons. Let's compare it to some other Ceratosaur figures from other companies. Here it is with Collectes, and next up here it is with Safari Limited, which does not want to stand. And next here it is with Papos, which I think is an awesome Ceratosaurus. I just love the balance on this figure. It looks like it's a tripod, but man, this thing just has amazing balance to it. And lastly, for Ceratosaur figures, here it is with PNSO's Big Dick Nick. Oh, God, I love this Ceratosaur figure. It's still one of my favorite version of the species in my collection. And as you can see, Ceratosaurus is a very popular dinosaur figure. pretty much every company has done one. There's, a few I definitely miss. There's a million repaints of it in the Jurassic World line, so it's definitely up there, for popular theropods like T-Rex and Spinosaurus. And let's do a couple other theropods that lived alongside Ceratosaurus in the Jurassic. Here it is with Collectes Torvosaurus, and next up is Papo's Allosaurus, and we are technically getting an Allosaurus from Rebor sometime this year. They're doing a Saurophaganax, and I'm really looking forward to that one. Yeah, it's a really stylized version of that species, but it's a Saurophaganax figure and I have to pick it up. And let's finish this off with a couple Rebor figures. Here it is with their old Acrocanthosaurus, and the whole diorama display that comes with this Acro is still one of my favorite dinosaur pieces in my entire collection. And we always have to take a Rex out for these comparisons. Here it is at Rebor's Killer Queen. And lastly, here it is with Rebor's Stegosaurus. And I think these two look quite nice next to each other. It would be a nice diorama display if you have them displayed on your shelf together. So final thoughts on this Ceratosaurus. Even though it's an older figure, I still quite enjoy it to this day. It's one of my favorite products from Rebor. Absolutely love the highly detailed and realistic base that it comes with. It's one of my favorite bases of all time, and it's a really nicely detailed, lifelike figure. It's not a perfect Ceratosaurus, but I think it'll work for most people, and it looks great displayed next to the Stegosaurus. Hopefully that big bad toy store listing, Rebor is going to do another production run of this figure. I know a lot of people are still looking for that, so hopefully that comes true. So yeah, it's definitely a cool looking figure that I recommend for most people's collection. I'm really looking forward to Rebor's Saurophaganax. I'm going to pick up the red one. It should be out relatively soon. I started seeing them pop up on AliExpress, and it usually means, Everything Dinosaur and Big Bad Toy Store. Those figures should be probably arriving in a couple weeks or so. So that will do it for the review. I'm going to try to keep doing like an old review figure once a week, just to kind of fill up the catalog on the channel. So I hope you enjoy these older reviews. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.